Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at the Zakarum's Hand Rune Scepter, which is an exceptional level item, and it has some very interesting effects which could potentially make a very sexy weapon for a mid-tier character, even maybe not a paladin. Zakarum's Hand has a damage of 41 to 76 and 58 strength requirement at level 37. It's not bad as far as damage goes for level 37. It seems a little on the low side, but it probably makes up for the fact that it's a little low on the low side with the really nice speed that it has, which is due in part to the 30% increased attack speed on it. We also have a very nice 6% chance to cast level 5 Blizzard on striking, which is going to be a very nice defensive and offensive ability because it's going to allow us to spam, essentially, blizzards on our targets. Now, granted, level 5 Blizzard isn't like super duper amazing. We're looking at 120 to 159 cold damage per second, and it has a duration of 4 seconds. So we basically have like an average of, I want to say like about 135 times 4, which isn't too bad. And it's also going to chill the monsters repeatedly, which will slow them down and will certainly help you get in there and be more offensive. Because if the monsters are being less offensive because they are chilled, then you can obviously be a little bit more offensive. We also have 220% enhanced damage on this, which is not bad at all for a elite item, or sorry, exceptional level item. And it does vary though from 180 to 220%. So what is that? 40% variable. We have 50% bonus damage to Undead on Hero Wells, of course, because it's a mace class weapon. And then we have a very sexy ignores targets defense. Now, ignores targets defense is amazing for trash mobs. So think about it like this. What ignores targets defense does is it removes the defense calculation from the hit rate calculation. Now, it does not guarantee a hit, but what it does do is for any monster that is not a boss, basically, or like an elite, it will essentially remove their defense from the calculation so that you don't have to have any attack rating to hit them. However, things like level penalty are still involved. So if you're fighting a monster that's a lot higher level than you, there will still be a level penalty involved. And on top of that, any monster that is elite or a boss is not going to work with ignores targets defense. So for the most part, you will find ignores targets defense to be extremely useful for trash mobs and not so much like for when you're fighting Diablo or Duriel. We also have 8% mana stolen per hit, which is a pretty decent chunk of mana steal for a level 37 item, and will certainly come in handy to help replenish your life from those zeals, holy shields, and other such effects that you're going to be pumping out. Paladins don't really tend to use a whole lot of mana as melee characters. Some of their spell type abilities tend to have a little bit more mana cost on them, but it seems to be more or less, like the melee abilities are like 2 mana cost or like 3 mana cost. The only one specifically that I know that's a melee ability on the Paladin that tends to have a very high mana cost is actually Vengeance. Vengeance, for some reason, has an extremely high mana cost as it levels up. And so maybe this might make a very interesting Vengeance Paladin weapon, specifically because, number one, it has the mana steal to help regenerate the mana. Number two, it has the ITD to make sure your Vengeance is hitting. And number three, it's extremely fast, which is something that you really need for Vengeance, because Vengeance is a rather slow ability. So in general, I could see this being a really sexy Vengeance Paladin weapon. Then we also have +2 Holy Shock and +2 Holy Freeze, which kind of point this more toward a Holy X Paladin. So when I say Holy X, I mean Holy Fire, Holy Freeze, or Holy Shock. Now this one in particular gives +2 to Holy Freeze and Holy Shock, so it could potentially be used for either. I think the best use for it, though, would be Holy Shock, just simply because if you're going with an item that has cold damage on it, you'd probably want to utilize another element, so you have 2 elements. It's always nice. It's always better to have 2 or 3 different elements than it is to only have 1 element, because then when you run into a monster that's immune to that element, well, you're just kind of screwed. And this one seems to be kind of focused around the cold damage with that Blizzard. Although it doesn't really have a whole lot of other cold damage on it, so I guess it's not super cold orientated. And then, of course, we also have the regenerate mana 10%, which I'm not really 100% sure why that's on there, because Holy Shock and Holy Freeze Paladins tend to use very little mana at all. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense as an effect, which really kind of puts this, again, more toward a Vengeance Paladin, in my opinion, because with the Mana Steal, the ITD, the fast nature of the weapon, and then the Regenerate mana on top of that, it really kind of screams out to me, hey, this would be good on a character, on a Paladin, that needs to regenerate his mana relatively quickly from a large mana using skill, and needs a fast weapon, and Vengeance really is that ability. Vengeance is a skill that just costs way too much freaking mana. It needs a fast attack speed, and it needs lots of mana steal to boot, because you have relatively low physical damage with Vengeance, and it just kind of works out better if you have a high amount of mana steal. Then on top of that, we also have a rather crappy effect of heal stamina plus 15%. I don't even know why they put that on there. Maybe at level 37 it could do you something, but like as you level up, you need stamina less and less, or care about stamina less and less, so it doesn't really even matter. You can also find this in the ethereal form, which is 60 to 115 damage, and has a strength requirement of 48. Now, unfortunately, you can't really utilize the damage on most characters unless you can also not burn durability. The only two attacks that I know of that don't burn durability are basically Blade Fury Sin and Kick Sins don't burn durability. So you could potentially use it on a Kick Sin for the ITD and the Blizzard on striking, and you could potentially use it on a Blade Fury Sin for the same reasons, the ITD and the Blade Fury on striking, or the Blizzard on striking. Let's upgrade this and let's see what it looks like in its elite form, shall we? So to upgrade this, we're going to need a Pull, a Lum, and a Perfect Emerald. And it's going to take us from the Rune Scepter, 41 to 76, 58 strength, level 37, to 128 to 166 damage, Mighty Scepter. That's actually pretty nice. 65 dexterity, 125 strength, level 53. That is actually an excellent upgrade. From 128 to 166 damage with only a level 53 requirement, that is absolutely great. And it has like all the modifiers that you would want on it, in my opinion. So you've got the IAS, you've got the ITD, you've got the Mana Steal, a decent amount of enhanced damage, and it's just a really sexy little weapon. You could, of course, socket it, throw something nice in there, like a Shale Rune. You know, if you like it, then you better put a Shale in it. And, yeah, I could see... definitely, if I found this on a Paladin, a Zeal Paladin, a Vengeance Paladin, a Holy X Paladin, I could see utilizing this from normal difficulty all the way into Hell difficulty, and then eventually replacing this with maybe something a little bit better. Let's check the ethereal version, and let's see how this one upgrades. So this is going to upgrade from 60 to 115, 48 strength, level 37, to 192 to 249, 55 dex, 115 strength, level 53. Again, very nice upgrade. And again, this could be extremely useful for a lower level Blade Fury Sin or a lower level Kick Sin. The ITD could be extremely handy in a couple situations. The Blizzard spamming could be nice. I mean, there's a ton of different options that you could do for the socket. And quite honestly, I mean... as some people might point out, there are better things that you could put in there than a Shale Rune. But Shale Runes are cheap and they're plentiful, and if you have a Hell Rune, you can always pull it out and put something better in there. Quite honestly, it's pretty sexy. Not going to lie. You know what? Let's put a Zod in it. How about? If you like it, then you better put a Zod in it. So if we wanted to Zod this and actually use it as a higher level item, let's see what level it would go to. So the level of the Zod is 69. And the level of the item is 53, and when we put the Zod in there, it goes to 76. So 192 to 249 damage at level 76 with ITD, 30% IAS, and Mana Steal. So it's not really a bad weapon at all. Are there better weapons it could potentially use? Yes. But it is sexy. It's very sexy. I think some of the elite scepters kind of edge this one out. Specifically, I'm thinking of like the Redeemer or Heaven's Light and Astrion's Iron Ward. They're all very interesting weapons in their own right. and could outclass this one. But I mean, but just look at it: 192 to 249. It's got ITD. It's very fast. It has some mana steal. It also beefs up your Holy Shock and Holy Freeze if you're running down that tree. I mean, who knows? If you were a solo self-found paladin, this might be the only scepter you find. Astrions may be an absolutely sexy weapon. And quite honestly, in some situations, Astrions is actually better than, say, a Grief. But good luck finding an Astrions. It's actually pretty rare. And I think the entire latter season, I haven't found an Astrions. So, and not only that, but Astrions Iron Ward is extremely hard to find in good condition. It has too many variables. So a lot of the times when you find one, it just ends up being poop. Whereas this item has literally only one variable, which is the ED. So if you find yourself a very nice 220% F Zakarum's Hand, could be a fun little one to upgrade and Zod, for maybe a collector's item. The really cool thing about this, though, is that I don't really feel like it needs to be specifically used on a paladin. I feel like you could use this on a barbarian, you could use it on a paladin, you could use it on a druid, you could use it on a freaking assassin. I mean, I don't really see any reason why this weapon needs to be relegated to any specific class. Like, it doesn't have that many class-specific benefits, and even then the class-specific benefits aren't the main attraction to the weapon. The main attraction to the weapon is the IAS, the relatively fast nature of the weapon, the ITD, the fact that it, basically takes care of trash like nobody's business, and then it also has the very nice mana steal, which will obviously keep your mana up and have fun. And then the Blizzard, of course, is also very nice and not class specific because it's also going to do some pretty nice damage and help to keep those monsters chilled. Now that is one downside of the weapon as well. So if you are a find item barbarian, you may not want the Blizzard destroying your corpses. So that's also a consideration. Let's take a look and see where we could potentially find ourselves a Zakarum hand if we want to get our hands on one. So let's go to the Silos pen, and Zakarum's hand is the only item that starts with Z, so that was pretty fast. Let's do about 150% magic find since we are talking about level 38. And let's look at normal difficulty first. So in normal difficulty super uniques, we've got very few choices, but Neelathak can drop it at 1 in 10,000, and he's very easy to farm. And Pindleskin is very easy to farm at 1 in 16,000. Bosses, basically just Bale at 1 in 1,361. So you may get lucky and find yourself a Zakarum's hand while you're EXPing up, which could be a very sexy find. Now let's check Nightmare difficulty and see what we're looking at for bosses in Nightmare. It does look like Andariel has a pretty good chance at 1 in 1,448. And Mephisto at 1 in 1,598. So not a lot of bad options. I mean, some pretty good options for finding this so far. And super uniques in Nightmare. It does look like the Cow King has a pretty good chance at 1 in 2,677. And the Countess in Nightmare, 1 in 13,000. Bone Ash, 1 in 17,000. Those are in Act 1, so could be very easy to farm if you're trying to get your hands on it early on in a Nightmare play. Don't see a lot of other good choices, but I mean, honestly, the Countess is something that you probably will farm in Nightmare difficulty for those runes, and if you happen to find a frickin' Zakarum's hand while you're on it, that's a pretty good choice. But it does seem like the bosses are the better choice as far as like drop rate goes. But, Countess is certainly not a bad choice for farming it, and Bone Ash is extremely easy to farm just in general because he's literally right there by the waypoint. I mean, he's in some ways he's actually easier to farm than Pindleskin in my opinion because you basically run in, kill him. He doesn't have any minions. Bone Ash is one of the few super uniques I've ever seen that doesn't have any minions. He just stands there by the cathedral and he's just by himself. I mean, granted, there are some random monsters that spawn around him from time to time, but he doesn't have any dedicated minions of his own. I think that's pretty much it. It's a very sexy weapon. It's maybe not the best weapon in the game or the best in slot weapon, but with a relatively low level of level 53, even when upgraded to the elite status, it actually makes an extremely good option to upgrade to the elite status for a character who may be struggling through nightmare difficulty. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and as always, keep your hands off people, you clammy hand putters. You're gonna just keep your Zakarum hands to yourself, you little punks.